Beautiful. Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to the third annual One Planet Peace Forum. We're honored and delighted to offer this abbreviated forum as a featured event on this closing day of Peace Week. This year's theme, Bold Visions of a Peaceful Future. And this is day 99 of the 99 days of peace through unity. The One Planet Peace Forum offers a universal platform for people of all religious, spiritual, and secular expressions from across the world to co-create solutions to the most challenging issues facing humanity today. It's One Planet Peace Forum's commitment to bring people of diverse traditions together to promote interfaith understanding through shared experience, leading to real action steps that cultivate harmony, justice, unity, and peace across all traditions. Today, we dedicate this forum to two amazing peace builders, Avon Madison and Philip Helmick. Please join me for a brief moment of silence as we honor their passing. It is my distinct honor to introduce to you 5 extraordinary individuals. Each will have 15 minutes to share their bold vision. Following these individual expressions, we will gather as a panel for a moderated, interactive dialogue. If you have questions for the panelists, I encourage you to put your questions in the chat, beginning with the word question in all caps so it's easier for us to track. Again, just put question in all caps and then ask your question. During the speakers' presentations, I encourage you to please minimize the use of the chat so that we can all be fully present with the rich and meaningful content being shared. Let's use our time together as a contemplative space, as a practice of peace. And with that, I invite you to take a few conscious breaths. Bring your awareness into your heart space. Find that still point within where silence speaks, where pure peace resides, the place of prior unity where we remember and we know we are whole, undivided, inseparable, one. Breathe into our collective potential of realizing peace through unity. I want to introduce you to Tammy Briggs, harpist, author, speaker, and founder of Healing Harps for Global Peace and Unity. You'll hear Tammy throughout our time today. As you hear the beautiful harp music, be reminded to take a conscious breath and open yourself to really assimilate the wisdom of what's being shared. And we'll begin with a brief prelude from Tammy. Beautiful. Our first speaker today is Dr. Anita Sanchez, author, consultant, trainer, speaker, and weaver of Indigenous wisdom and modern science. She will present Indigenous wisdom, creating peace in our one hoop of life. Anita?
Thank you so much. I'm just delighted to be here. And I can't think of a better way to spend this time as the autumn equinox just started, to be really sharing our bold visions for the future. There are so many Indigenous teachings, prophecies about this time. And prophecies don't foretell the future, but prophecies are basically telling us the original knowledge and that what might happen or not happen if we do not follow it. And so I want to share with you during this time, both weaving my own personal journey, because I think stories are very important, with the prophecies and stories that I'm a messenger of. My ancestry is Nawa, which many know as Azteca. And there's a word, Netalisli, which means rootedness. And that as I was taught by my grandmother and my mother about many of our ways about the original knowledge and the people, it was always in that we were rooted. Now that rootedness is both into the earth and in this one hoop of life, but that rootedness in another paradoxical way is also to the cosmos. So it is peace is the natural way. So as early as age 3 and 4, my earliest memories of my dreams, and I still have this dream to this day that I would share with my relatives, because they were very open to dreams, because we realize what you dream, these visions have energy, and those energies are what we project out in the world. And they can either be a positive nightmare kind of dreams or visions, or they can be life-giving. And so in my vision, as early as 3 and 4, is that I saw that when I was going to grow up, that I saw the earth and all these stick people, different colors and sizes, and we all had our hands on each other's hearts. And I remember in kindergarten when they asked, what are you going to be when you grow up? And everybody drew wonderful teachers, doctors, mommies, daddies, all kinds of things. I drew that picture. And I said, I'm one of these. And there's millions of us. We're all over the place. And I'm sure today I'm talking to some of you right now, and not only to you, but I acknowledge your ancestors who dreamed you here, and your ancestors' ancestors, and going back, and also going forward, because time is not linear, as now science is catching up with Indigenous knowing, is that no, it's more circular. And so every thought, every idea, every dream, every action has energy and power that gives us to hold, to co-create these bold visions for the future of peace that is the natural order. So I mentioned, I want to share a couple of prophecies, because it's not in being in denial. When we hold these big, bold visions, it's not about what some talk about, spiritual bypass. Oh, I don't need to deal with what's happening because, I'm evolved. Nor is it a time for us to get stuck into all the pain and everything to that where we're spiraling downward. Instead, as whole human beings, we have this capacity to hold all of it, hold all in the hoop of life, because we're part of it, and we're not holding it alone, not even breathing. We are doing that with the plant relatives that I can see out here out my window as I sit in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. So the prophecies, though, that I remember hearing very little, and I hear as I travel different parts of the world, go somewhat like this. We're going to be in this time of a great winter like no other, where the trees are dying, the waters are polluted, the air is not breathable, that species are leaving our relatives, and it just sounds apocalyptic and horrible. And the response as we are in ceremony, the response from the elders in speaking to us about the original knowledge is Spirit tells us, do your dance, sing your song, be in ceremony, and be in community. And I remember as a child loving that. And then as a teenager, I started going, wait a minute, is that enough? Now, the elders have never lied to me, and the earth certainly hasn't in ceremony, but is that enough? And yet, as I understand and live this, what they're talking about is that we need to look at where we go to the source to respond to the challenges that exist. And we have big ones now, so it's not in denial of those. But in that source, how we strengthen it, how we become resilient so we can keep dreaming. I have so many people that have really difficult, I'm having hopelessness, difficulty holding on to a vision of the most beautiful possible peaceful future. And that is why we go back in, we and with each other and sing our songs and do our dance, be in ceremony and community, because we can together draw on this naturalness that is our joy, is our sacred way. And that even though we're all sacred in the hoop of life, every being is, it doesn't mean we always operate in a sacred way, but we are sacred beings. And so to draw on that. And with that, I wanted to share with you is that I am delighted, just filled with joy of being a messenger. And I didn't know that from that dream that I had very little. I'm a corporate consultant doing diversity, equity, inclusion work for 47 years all over the world. And fortunately, in that process, I've got to visit the relatives of First Peoples of different parts of the world. But what I didn't really understand is that the weaving, the remembering of who we are and what we are is in many of the prophecies. And the one that I'm a messenger of that I want to share with you in helping you to support creating and co-creating a bold vision of peace for the future. But it's also now. We're not waiting. It's embodying it now and everywhere. And again, in every thought, action, behavior, it's what we're doing now that so matters. And so the Eagle Hoop prophecy is a prophecy that a Mohican elder, Don Coyas, had back in, and it's not a real old prophecy. There are many that are hundreds, if not thousands of years old. But this one was back in 1994. And in this prophecy, he had in his dream this vision that came and in light, and he saw the destruction of things happening, but also this beautiful light at the same time. There was no separation. There was this light. And as the tree limbs fell off, the trunk became a hoop. It was a hoop, the symbol of life of all of us. And then as more lights came down, they turned into eagle feathers to where there was 100 eagle feathers on this hoop. And then he was instructed by Spirit to call out around the world because of this great winter time that was coming, that the two-leggeds had forgotten. Not that we were flawed, but that we've forgotten, and we need to remember how to be in peace, how to be in balance and harmony with all the relatives in the hoop of life. And so he did. He did call out, and in that call, 27 elders came and spent time together in their own language, in prayers, meditation, dance, singing, ceremony, and community. And with this eagle hoop, they then put 4 gifts in it for all humankind. And these are the gifts that I want to share with you that are part of the solution. I'm not going to say only, because there's such diversity in our unity, so many paths. It makes me so happy. But this one I've been sharing since 95, when I then received these gifts. And so I ask you to listen with the softest part of your ears and with an expanding heart. The first gift, to bring peace, harmony, and balance to all members in the hoop of life, is the gift of the power to forgive the unforgivable. The gift of the power to forgive the unforgivable. Take that gift of the power to forgive the unforgivable and place it, and you can also put your hands right on your heart and put that in the ceremonial part of your heart. And I know you automatically know where that is. The power of forgiveness. And I'll speak more of these after I give you all 4, given whatever time I have left. But just as you do that, you'll start to sense what you've already forgotten, maybe, or maybe the tug on your expanding heart and your listening is what still needs to be forgiven. For it does take energy that could be used and not being caught in hurt, pain, retaliation, resentment, all the different ways. There's freedom in forgiveness. The second gift, all of these elders from Europe, Asia, Africa, the Americas put into the hoop is the gift of the power of healing. The gift of the power of healing. Take that gift and again, put your hands on your heart and put that in the ceremonial part. And as you do that, giving gratitude for all those things that have been healed, it's a gift that you use daily, but also might be coming to you as a little tug of what needs healing. Or perhaps in our busyness, not even being quiet enough, the pause to be able to listen from within, listen to our ancestors, listen to nature of what is calling out to us to heal, for us to contribute to that. The third gift that they put into the hoop for all humankind to create peace, harmony, and balance is the gift of the power of unity, as Julie has already been talking about, and that brings us here. Unity in our diversity. But put that gift of the power of unity right there, with your hands on your heart, into that ceremonial place. And as you do that, thinking about all of the different communities that you're a part of. And does unity exist? And as you're feeling this starts with yourself, is your heart in your mind, your spirit, are they in unity? Or is there some illusion of separateness? Is there something wanting to be reunited? The gift of the power of unity. And then finally, the fourth and final gift that Spirit told the elders to put into hoop for all humankind is the gift of the power of hope, hope in action. Put the gift of the power of hope in action in the ceremonial part of your heart. And just breathe that in. And think about all the things that you hope for and that have actually manifested. And maybe this bold vision of peace that you have, also give gratitude, even for the little baby steps that have happened. And maybe some big steps have happened too. Or maybe what you're sensing is the tug in your heart is, oh, I need to pay some attention to this gift to reignite the hope. Why we are all gathered here today. That hope, that vision of a bold, beautiful, peaceful world, the natural way of this hoop of life. And so take these four gifts, the gift of the power to forgive the unforgivable, the gift of the power of healing, the gift of the power of unity, and the gift of the power of hope in action. Use these four gifts is the promise from the great mystery, from Spirit, and you will remember. And what I will share with you is since 1995, when I thought I would leave and feeling kind of hopeless, actually, that things weren't changing fast enough, that I was just counting and seeing things through my mind and my eyes and not opening to the wholeness of who I am. But these gifts, then I began weaving into all of how I be, first of all, and then all of what I teach. And what I found is that there have been tens of thousands of people who already know these gifts. You already know these gifts, but it's just a matter of using them. Again, we've forgotten, but our ancestors are here to help us. All who are here on this beautiful time, this gathering, and even people far away that we have not seen are here together. So I've had the time correct. I think I have about 3 more minutes left, and I'm looking to see, hopefully that's correct. I just want to share, because I know we can have conversation later about the gifts. I just returned from Norway and Ireland, where I was in sacred ceremony with the Sami people in the Arctic Circle, and then in Ireland with people as well. And there was a commemoration of, it was a statue, it is a statue just outside of Cork, Middleton, with eagle feathers. There's silver eagle feathers as the monument. And it is an acknowledgement of the tie between two groups of people who never knew each other, but felt the need, the yearning, the compelling to help ease suffering and to show this gift of hope, of love. And so very quickly, I just want to end with back in 1840s, if you haven't heard this, the Choctaw Nation in the United States, an indigenous group, read about the famine, the millions who were dying and people leaving Ireland, and just the devastation. And they gathered $140 and they sent it to Ireland with a note saying, we are hearing and we know about starvation. We know about losing your land, knowing you may never go back. But we want you to know that this is all we could gather. And we send you this with the hope and acknowledgement that the suffering is real. But we are here to help ease the pain in any way we can, and knowing that we are all connected. Fast forward a year and a half or so ago, $1.7 million was sent to the Choctaw people from a group in Ireland who said, we have not forgotten. We have not forgotten the gift you gave to us when we were in such suffering. And we are giving you this, which translates to what it would have, the value of it back then in the 1840s. But what they said is that it is the hope, the vision is that as they hear about the elders dying and the inequities in so many different ways, that this money, this will help reduce the suffering, knowing that forever we're connected. They didn't use the one hoop of life, but that's what they know. That's what they're speaking of. And so I just share that with you, saying whatever is yours to do, that these 4 gifts are here for you, and use them, as well as what all of the speakers later will share, different ways of how we can truly be the mirror that is already present of this bold vision for the future of peace. And what better time to hold that as when we're in the kind of challenges of war and all the many things that are existing right now. But it has always been, as our ancestors will tell us, as we go quiet, as we look at nature, we are part of this whole hoop of life. We have everything we need. And so I thank you, all my precious relations, and look forward to more conversation. Aho.
I'm pleased to introduce to you Dr. Shamini Jain, author, clinical psychologist, and founder and CEO of the Consciousness and Healing Initiative. The title of her talk is Ahisma and Beyond. You'll have to correct me, Shamini. I had it in my head earlier if I said it wrong. How Jain or Jan practices can help us flourish in an uncertain world. Shamini.
Thank you so much, Julie, and thank you so much, Anita, and all the presenters. I'm so looking forward to hearing everyone, and I just want to share and feeling deeply emotional. I mean, full of gratitude, but also a lot of emotion coming through at this moment for our time together and what it means for us to come together as a global humanity at this time to help forward peace. So I'd like to share a bit of perspectives and a little bit about Jainism, which is my spiritual home, because many people don't know about it. So I'll share a little bit about that and how it's personally impacted me as what I would call a Jain lay person. I don't consider myself religious, but I do very much adhere to the spiritual tenets of Jainism and feel that there is much that has been taught from this tradition as well as others that can really bring to light how we move about the world peacefully in times of chaos, and it is quite chaotic. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Jainism, you're not alone. It's a very small religion. Some people may think of it more as a philosophy, than a religion, certainly influenced many social change leaders in our lifetimes, including Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, and Nelson Mandela, and others. So the idea, the main premise of Jainism, you can say the main central tenet of Jainism that most people are familiar with, if you're familiar with Jainism, is ahimsa. Ahimsa is the Sanskrit word for non-violence, meaning non, himsa meaning violence. So ahimsa means non-violence. I'd like to share a little bit about what it was like growing up in Jainism, because some of you who are familiar with Jainism, there's also a lot of misconceptions about it. And honestly, I've been a little sad reading about some of the misconceptions that have been propagated even through social media about Jainism being very ascetic, of course, but almost incredibly strict. And that is because you'll see, for example, that the monks and nuns who follow Jainism as carefully as possible will be the ones that you'll see that will be wearing, for example, mupatis or cloths around the mouth. And they may walk around with a broom, for example, to sweep insects away so that they don't step on them. They wear the mupati so that they don't kill as many organisms when they breathe. So when you follow Jainism to its T, and you read some of the ways that Jainism has been described by mostly the monks of our time, as a layperson, I have to admit, I felt like, wow, Catholic guilt has nothing on Jans, because you end up feeling literally guilty for breathing. It's very true. And I have to share, when I was young, I really questioned. I said, wow, I believe in all of these tenets, but how do I go about the world as a layperson, and at that time as a child, thinking, how do I hold on to these beautiful tenets of nonviolence and others in a way that honors the tradition while recognizing that as a human being, I cause suffering and I experience suffering. Now, this is not alone. Many people compare Jainism with Buddhism and other spiritual traditions because there is an understanding that as human beings, we experience suffering. It's part of being human. And like other traditions, Jainism also describes how we have a tremendous opportunity as human beings. And that is because we experience suffering and we can experience great joy. Jains believe that it is a great gift to be a human, because as being a human and working through our suffering, as well as allowing ourselves to experience joy without any attachment, we can achieve enlightenment. I want to talk about this concept of enlightenment for a bit in terms of the way it's been described in Jainism and the way that I currently view it now. Most of the books I read when I was a child were pretty clear. The world is suffering, you're born alone, you die alone. Ultimately, you're an individual soul, and your goal spiritually is to transcend the body, to transcend your senses, come into enlightenment so that you can fully leave the body and leave the karmic, the dance of karma, completely leave it. So that's the way it has been described. And that is a true perspective, but there are other ways to explore this perspective. So if you go into a spiritual practice or tradition thinking, I'm ready to just sort of fast track. I want to get out of here. There's too much suffering here for me. I'm going to just follow, all of the principles. For example, Jains are very, very clear about not only this, do they believe karma exists? Karma being our thoughts, words, and deeds, honestly, that leaves subtle impressions in the field that cloud the light of our consciousness so that we don't always experience the oneness that we are. So they give very, very careful prescriptions on how to rid yourself of pretty much every karma. So you can go through life like that. Okay, this is all about my liberation. I'm going to just focus on whatever I need to do to liberate my karma so that I can get out of here and I can become enlightened. That's one way to interpret the teachings. The other way is to look a little bit more deeply at what the teachings are actually saying and why we practice nonviolence. Because when you get deep into the metaphysical understandings, the spiritual understandings that these adept practitioners, these enlightened beings discovered and taught to us, we understand that they were coming from a place of unbounded consciousness. And Anita, I absolutely love so much of what you shared earlier and felt so much resonance with some of these principles of Jainism. So nonviolence, why? Well, it's quite simple. Because once we're connected to understanding that we are part of the fabric of consciousness, the reality that expresses itself in every single divine form on the planet, whether it is a bug or a tree or an ant, anything at all, a carrot, right? We actually can have reverence for that aspect of consciousness that is not separate from us. And we naturally do not wish to cause it harm if we don't have to. There is a reverence then for all of life, for all beings, and an understanding that everything that we see in the world is just a reflection of the consciousness that we're all a part of. And we can rejoice in that and celebrate it. That's why one of the main tenets of Jainism is also anikantavad, or truth of multiple perspectives, non-absolutism, similar to what Anita was sharing. That when we have reverence for all of this divine life that is literally teeming with life energy, that we can recognize when we see it. We also can welcome multiple perspectives on all roads that lead to the realization of that oneness. There is no problem. There is no duality. There is only really celebration. And then the other tenets are similar to other tenets that you see in other religions, things like non-stealing, truthfulness, recognizing and working with the creative and sexual force in a way that honors the spiritual path. These are all common, and they, in my perspective, have to do with really honoring the life energy that is a part of us and honoring the life energy that is around us. So I think that there's much that we can learn from all of these different spiritual traditions. And as we're continuing to learn through this conversation, they're again much more similar than different. For me, what I've come to understand is that concepts are great, theories are great, models are great, the pathways that have been laid out of the metaphysics are great. Ultimately, it comes back to our practice. That's just it. If we want a peaceful world, we have to bring peace within us at every moment. And we have to recognize when we're moving from a place that's more bounded or conditioned by our life experience. And when we can move from a place that's more connected, because ultimately that's what we're all really craving, is an understanding and an embodiment of that connection. So for me, practice is huge. And I want to share just one very simple mantra that we can all do that comes from Jainism. It's very simple. It's one word. And if there's the desire, I can share a longer mantra for peace from the Jain tradition later, but I want to share this one because anyone can do it. And the phrase is Arham, A-R-H-U-M, Arham. This comes, of course, from the tradition of understanding that every word is made up of sacred vibrations that are connected to the elements, the instantiations of life energy that come to us in different forms, like fire, air, water, and so on. So in Arham is connected to Amrit, or the sacred water of life. Ra is connected to the divine fire, the fire of the aspirant. Hum is a way of focusing the energy, sometimes in the nasal cavity, to connect with space. And Arham reflects those who have become enlightened and stayed, of course, to teach the way of enlightenment in all traditions. So if we allow ourselves to bring Arham into our hearts as just a practice, a vibrational practice, and we can do this silently, we can do it, making sound, you'll find that you'll bring yourself even closer to the light of consciousness that is unbounded, the truth of who we are. And that allows us to more freely move from that place so that we can create a world of peace from our very being. I'll just lastly share with you a story. And maybe there are many stories from spiritual traditions about this. Why is it most important for us to cultivate the presence of peace, to bring it out in the world? There are many stories in our tradition of our Tirthankras, or say our enlightened teachers, who have come across many, many obstacles, but several stories relating to wild animals. And, even stories that we know of from living teachers of this tradition recently who have come across, for example, wild animals literally ready to charge and destroy. And simply through their presence, they're able to calm down the animal and foster a connection. We see this often. Now, many of you know I'm a researcher. We want to be able to explore this peaceful presence more deeply, but it is very much a real thing. So it comes back to our practice. And I just want to thank you for allowing me to be part of this panel. It's really my honor and my pleasure. Thank you.
Our third speaker today is Rabbi Rami Shapiro, award-winning author, co-director of One River Foundation, and contributing editor at Spirituality and Health. His presentation is titled Becoming a Beacon of Light in a Time of Deepening Darkness.
Thank you. So I am really blessed to be part of this panel, be with all of you. Today is the final Shabbat of the Jewish year. We start a new, the calendar rolls over. Tomorrow night starts the new year. I thought this has got to be the best way to close out one year, talking about peace. Judaism is a huge tradition. Most people who know something about it either know very little, or what they know is skewed by having it filtered through other traditions, mostly Christianity. There's no way I can sum up Judaism and give you, a core way of dealing with this dark time, but I'm going to do my best. Know that this is simply my approach. Decades ago, I was in Amsterdam. I was giving a talk there to a group called Children of Holocaust Survivors. And the person who was sort of taking care of me while I was there said that she got a call from a rabbi in Israel who wanted to come and see me, and would I be willing to see him? And I said, yeah, and we set up a time. And this guy flew in. I don't know his name. I don't know why he came. He showed up at I was living in a little apartment. He showed up at my door. I invited him in. He stepped in. He wouldn't give me his coat. I had some tea ready. He didn't want to sit down. He said, I came just to ask you one question. What is Judaism? If I thought about it, I wouldn't have a clue what to say. But I didn't think about it. I just reacted. And it was like a koan in my 10 years of Zen study, sort of a question put to you and you just respond. And I said to him that Judaism is teshuvah, which is returning to your true nature, and tikkun, which is repairing the world from your true nature. So I want to talk a little bit about true nature and how to do this healing from that space. And I think the best way to do that is to go back to what Anita said and sing your song. So I'm going to sing a song. And if I had more time, I'd invite you all to sing it with me, but it's in English. It's not too hard to get, and you'll get the meaning of it, I think, fairly quickly. The song is written by a Rabbi Twersky, 18th century, from Chernobyl in Ukraine. And it goes like this. I am alive. I am alive. I am alive. I'm alive. And who is this aliveness I am? And who is this aliveness I am? And who is this aliveness I am? Is it not the Holy Blessed One? And it just goes over and over and over again. Now, I sing this daily as a reminder of my true nature, as part of my teshuvah practice, awakening to who I truly am. It starts out with this simple celebration of I'm alive. Each one of us is this unique expression of an infinite and non-dual divine, which is where the song ends up. But I'm alive. I am precious. I am unique. I have never been here before, and I will never be here again. Even if you believe in reincarnation, you're not going to be reincarnated in the same way. It's like waves on an ocean. All the waves are a part of the same ocean, but no wave is the same as all the others, and no wave is re-waved. The ocean just waves. So it starts out with this celebration of your unique aliveness, and then it questions it. Are you just this, right? Are you just this ego? Are you just this body? And then he answers his own question by saying, no, what you really are is the holy blessed one, the divine, however named, however understood, but understood as the infinite, and therefore as that which happens as everything. In Hebrew, the name of God, one of the names for God, is the unpronounceable Yud He Vav He, or YHVH, and the idea is it's not a noun. The word God is fixed. It's a noun. The word Lord is fixed. It's hierarchical. It's masculine. But the Yud He Vav He, or the YHVH, is a verb. It means to happen. God is the happening that's happening as all happening. So God is that non-dual reality of which each of us is a part. If you're coming from a Christian tradition, you get it from the book of Acts, where St. Paul defines God, borrowing from a Greek poet. God is that in whom we live and move and have our being, like the Tao, like Brahman, like Dharmakaya. So this is your true nature. You are a unique manifesting of God. And when we reconnect with that, when we understand who we really are, we understand that everyone and everything is the same. Right? There's nothing animate or inanimate. It's all the aliveness of God. It's not that some beings are more alive than other beings. All beings are this expression of this non-dual aliveness. When you realize that, then you go from teshuva, remembering your true nature, to tikkun, healing the world from that awareness. So how do you do that? I mean, Judaism is filled with practices that can be looked at in this light, but I want to share one in particular. And it comes from, well, it's both ancient and modern, because I'm going to filter it through the modern. There's a philosopher in the 20th century, a French fellow, Jewish philosopher named Emmanuel Levinas. And Levinas has this, what he calls the ethic of the face. And Levinas says that if you truly see the face of another being, and he's mostly talking about human beings, and he's a product of concentration camp. He was, captured by the Nazis and spent years in concentration camp. So his understanding is deeper than mine, I would say, just from that alone. But he says, if you truly see the face of another, and again, he's talking about people, but if you truly see the face of another, you will feel this inner compassion that makes it impossible for you to do that other harm. It's not that there's a law coming from outside you that says, do not kill, do not steal. It's an inner awareness that arises from the deeper awareness of the divinity of the being that you're meeting. Martin Buber, though scholars don't like to mix Levinas and Buber, I'm not a scholar, I mix them very, very happily. Martin Buber speaks of something similar when he says you can see the face of any being, and when you do, you see the face of God. He's explicit about it. And when you see that face, again, you can do no harm. If there's going to be a transformation in human consciousness, if there's going to be a bold new vision of global peace, not just for people, but for all beings, it's going to have to come from the human end anyway, this realization of our own divinity, the realization of the divinity of everything else, and then engaging with everything else from this ethic of the face, being able to see that other being as divine, as holy, and doing it no harm. In Judaism, there is a practice that goes with this, though it's much older than Levinas or Buber, thousands of years older. And the practice is called shiviti, or I place. It's from Psalm 16, if I remember this right. It says, Shiviti Ladonai Shiviti Adonai Lenegdi Tamid, which in English, this is how we're going to use it. In English, it's, I place the divine before me always. Not before me in the sense of above me, that God's more important because God is everything. But wherever I look, I place the divine. In other words, I make a conscious effort to realize that I'm not just looking at some being separate from the divine. I'm looking at a being who is a part of, not apart from, but a part of the divine. I'm looking at a unique expression of God. And so the practice is, when you're wandering around during your day, whenever you come in contact with a face, and you can define this very loosely. It could be a human face, it could be an animal face, it could be the face of a tree or a leaf, or whatever it happens to be. Whenever you see whatever you see, you repeat, and you could say it's a mantra if you like, but you repeat the mantra, and I'll just do it in English. I place the divine before me always. In other words, I'm looking at this tree and I'm seeing God treeing. I'm looking at another person and I'm seeing God as that other person, not in the other person, but as the other person. Just as a wave is not, it's not on the ocean, it is the ocean. It's that very intimate realization of God in, with, and as all things. If we could do this, if we could sing that song and realize that I am God, right? When Jesus says, I and the Father are one, it's Jesus coming out of a Jewish tradition. There is no Christianity in the time of Jesus. Jesus coming out of the Jewish spiritual tradition where everything is an expression of the divine. When Jesus says, I and the Father are one, or when Jesus says, I am the way and the truth and the life, he's simply speaking the same idea that I'm sharing with you here. He has realized his own divinity and the divinity of everything else. If we could do that, and then engage the world from that place of awareness, everything would be different. Everything would be different. Because the problem that we're facing is one of having forgotten who we are and having forgotten what everything else is. We live under what Albert Einstein called an optical delusion of consciousness, by which he meant that we look at each other, as separate, as alien, right? We see ourselves separate from, alienated from, apart from whatever we're looking at. And he says it's an optical delusion. It comes because of the way our eyes are set in our head, but it creates a mindset of othering and otherness that is at the heart of this great dark night of human civilization that we're going through. And if we're going to bring light into that, we have to see in a different way. We have to see the divine, right? So I place the divine before me always. We have to see the divine in, with, and as all things. And if we can do that, we can see ourselves and others as God happening, then we bring this light into the world. And this light will shatter the fog of ignorance that is at the heart of everything that's wrong with our culture. So I only have a couple minutes left. I'm going to just sing this again just to get it back in your head, and maybe that will, maybe it'll stick with you and you start singing it yourself. Yeah, I did it, I did it, I did, I am alive. Yeah, I did it, I did it, I did, I am alive. Yeah, I did it, I did it, I did, I am alive. I'm alive. And who is this aliveness? I am. And who is this aliveness? I am. And who is this aliveness? I am. Is it not the Holy Blessed One. Let me wish you all a Happy New Year, a Lashana Tova, and a true time of turning to our true nature and engaging the world in a healing way. Thank you.
Take another deep breath with me. It's so wonderful to have that harp music in between these amazing speakers. Thank you, Tammy. And our next speaker is Dr. Huda Mahmoudi, author, researcher, sociologist, and the Baha'i Chair for World Peace at the University of Maryland. Her presentation is entitled The Spiritual Fight for Global Peace. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Julie. I really appreciate the introduction, and I appreciate being invited to this wonderful program today, and acknowledge the wonderful work that the One Planet Peace Forum is doing. Anything that we can do to improve our dialogue about how to bring peace into the world is so important, and I'm very honored to be with the different speakers who have spoken today. And of course, Happy New Year or Shana Tova to the Jewish community. I will, as you know, the title of my talk is The Spiritual Fight for Global Peace. And I want to begin by saying that the aspiration for achieving peace has been a major concern throughout history, all of history. Every generation longs for peace, struggles for peace, fights for peace. Soldiers and innocent civilians are either psychologically damaged, physically maimed, or lose their lives as a result of war. Not a day goes by without some part of our planet and of our human family experiencing firsthand the atrocities of war or the displacement of hundreds of thousands of innocent people, as well as the shocking acts during war in the form of rape and violence against women, girls, and children. Currently, in our contemporary world, the word peace is mentioned everywhere. Headlines include such phrases as a lasting peace, cry for peace and security, building peace, lasting peace deal, and on and on. But as one minister at the United Nations said, peace, the word, is easier to locate than peace, the condition. Indeed, peace is much talked about. There is dialogue everywhere about achieving peace. But what is missing are actions, actions that will ultimately make a difference, actions that can lay a foundation upon which peace can be constructed. But before I speak about the spiritual fight for peace, I would like to make a couple of points. One is that the spiritual fight for peace is more than the elimination of war or the prohibition of weapons of war. Although abolishing war and prohibiting weapons of war is extremely important, it will unfortunately, in my opinion, not bring about peace. It will simply not bring us closer to peace. There are so many other forms of warfare that people and nations use against each other. Ideology, wars over the planet's resources, food or water, over finance, and of course, acts of terrorism, to name a few. To achieve a lasting peace, a radical shift is necessary, a shift that moves us away from the current system and culture of hate, violence, conflict, competition, and warfare to an inclusive culture of peace, a culture of cooperation, alliance, mutual support, and constructive action that benefits all the peoples and nations of the world. In order to move from a culture of violence to a culture of peace, I think we must think first and examine our own attitudes and actions. After all, it can be said that if we truly desire a peaceful world, then we must acknowledge that peace stems from an inner state within every single person, within each of us. As stated by Abdu'l-Baha, peace must first be established among individuals until it leads in the end to peace among nations. Without an inward peace, no form of peace in the world is possible. And that inner peace should stem from and be supported by values, ethics, or morals. In this context, the aspiration for peace is an attitude, a will, and a yearning which promotes in all of us the discovery and implementation of practical measures for peace. What do I mean by this? There are major issues and social problems within our homes, neighborhoods, cities, countries, and globally, which, if not addressed first, will continue to serve as barriers, as impediments to global peace. In other words, these barriers are what ultimately lead to violence and conflict. Although by no means am I going to have an exhaustive list to present today, but let me just name a few of these impediments. I would say first and foremost is the discrimination and violence against women throughout the world. Second, the scourge of prejudice and the whole problem of systemic racism, the rising global inequality, and a growing culture of hate. These are but a few of the impediments that prevent us from having peaceful societies and a peaceful world. To remove these and other barriers to peace, the role of the individual is paramount, although not always acknowledged. We can not only rely on others to do this important work for us. We must look inward, examine our own thoughts and actions, and decide what are our own roles in creating a more peaceful world. Every person can contribute to the important work of creating a more peaceful world. The process of social change begins at the individual level, where values or ethics are instilled and subsequently enlisted as the means to remove the barriers to peace. Individual transformation within this context, then, when you begin with the individual, that individual transformation leads to the transformation of communities, then to the institutions, and ultimately to the world. Each individual must engage in a very active mission of love and care. Every person can contribute to an ethic of peace, and every individual can add to the pattern of peace. The ethics and experience of peace directs each individual to master his or her own inner world before considering the outer world. By mastering one's own actions and well-being first, the individual would then be equipped to conquer the negative forces of conflict, violence, and oppression, and then engage individually outwardly towards bettering the world. In other words, the roots of peace are situated in the very meaning and purpose of life itself, within the human spirit. As an individual gives him or herself to an inward engagement, he or she has the opportunity to discover an overarching map and pattern of peace that can be followed and shared with others. Of course, no individual's existence, moral outlook, or spiritual life is separate from the larger society. We are all interdependent and interconnected. Every person should consider taking actions that are of service to one another and to the entire human race. To engage in activities that somehow leads to the well-being and happiness of others, this is what's important. But that does not mean that one is looking forward or towards some far-off nation or some complex philosophical undertaking. Rather, it means that one looks at the resources that are available, considers the challenges that are close at hand, and then identifies others so inclined to join in the work towards peace. Our efforts to create a more peaceful world require that every definition of peace be expressed as holistic and integrative process designed to involve everyone, every person on this planet. The pathway to global peace is undoubtedly and obviously very complex. It is also a multi-stage process that must aim to remove the various barriers and prejudices that separate the peoples and nations of the earth. The removal of such barriers will lead to ever increasing collaboration and unity among people. The achievement of such a unity is in turn realized by the spread of justice to human relationships, institutional practices, and governmental rule. This newly invigorated sense of justice would seek to amend and replace fallen and outdated human systems, systems that restrain humanity from reaching its full potential. Internationally, the establishment of justice would be a key element to the development of global unity and global peace, the unity of people, the unity of nations, the unity among religions will follow. The establishment of justice will also lead to women's equality and women's equal participation in all aspects of society, social, educational, political, legal, and so on. Women's equality is one of the most important, although less acknowledged, vital preconditions for achieving global peace. Otherwise, it is clear that social development, the highest social development of humanity, is not possible without achieving full equality for women. Yet the longing for peace is not enough to produce peace. The minds of people will need to become united, for without it, no important matter can be accomplished. This is why unity of conscience throughout all humanity is at the center of the great work of peace. If we truly examine the motivation behind and causes of wars, we realize that wars have started either from religious prejudice, racial prejudice, national prejudice, economic prejudice, or political greed and interest. As long as these prejudices last, the peace and security of humanity is not guaranteed. When such prejudices pass away, the world will find its way to peace. Greed and self-interest require the powers of conscience, of a sense of high and wrong, of social and spiritual ideas, ethical attitudes, and humane feelings, so that people, all of us, may feel duty-bound to demonstrate good character and actions. The concept of peace and the vision for peace that I've outlined is complex. It's multifaceted, multi-layered, and inclusive. But then so is our world a complex and multifaceted place. A holistic approach to peace is a call to everyone, to all humankind, male, female, religious, non-religious, rich and poor alike, to act in the assemblage of peace. This vision of peace does not advocate a utopian set of ideals intended to erase irrational thought or scientific inquiry, but instead argues for the need for science and reason to assist in the peace-building process. The process of constructing world peace will require great work and great time, even generations to come. But this fact does not minimize our responsibility today. It only increases the value and importance of individual efforts and principled acts. We, along with a wide variety of individuals everywhere, must come together in small and large groups to weigh in on these complex problems. A process that is rooted in shared human values is the best way to construct a shared human future. That's why the spiritual fight for peace becomes so important. Thus, with a vision of our common humanity and the search for the tools to break down barriers, all of us have a part to play in the spiritual fight for peace. It is so important in our current fragmented world for each of us who is serious about the establishment of peace to seek the unification of principle and practice, ideal and effort. And we must be willing to go wherever peace demands and to infuse the world with beauty, with hope, and the testimony of the human spirit. Yet ultimately, it is our actions that buy us a seat at the table. Actions that we hope will grow the garden of world peace. Thank you.
And finally, we bring you the esteemed Yuka Sionji Matsura, Deputy Chairperson of Goi Peace Foundation. Her segment is entitled Envisioning a World of Peace. Yuka.
Thank you so much, Julie, and hello, everybody. I'm so honored to be here. I am truly inspired by all the panelists, and at the same time, feeling such resonance and unity with each and every one of you. And also for all the participants who are here to bringing their presence for peace and feeling the energy of everyone coming together for peace and listening to the beautiful music by Tammy. I'm just so honored and grateful to be here. My name is Yuka, and my grandfather, Masahisa Goi, was the person who came up with this peace prayer, may peace prevail on earth. And so before I begin, my talk, I would love to start off with his prayer. And to me, his prayer, the one sentence, the first sentence of his prayer, may peace prevail on earth, is really one way to express the four sacred gift that Anita has said, because I believe in this simple prayer has the power of forgiveness, healing, unity, and hope. And so I'm just going to share with you the words in the beginning. Are you able to see the slide? Is it okay? Okay. So I'll do it again, but first I just want to explain. It says, may peace prevail on earth. May peace be in our homes and countries. May our missions be accomplished. And when my grandfather says mission, we have a life mission, of course, of life purpose, of accomplishing what you want to do in this world and all. But he also said we all have a greater mission as a soul mission. And our soul mission is to express and bring out that infinite love and wisdom and harmony that is the vibration already existing in our soul. And so our mission, when we say, may our missions be accomplished, we mean it in a greater way of our soul mission, letting our soul live itself and express itself as this infinite love, which is the expression of the essence itself. And so, and we say, we thank you, guardian deities and guardian spirits, because my grandfather says each one of us who are born here has its own guardian deities and guardian spirits that protect you and guide you throughout your life. Guardian deities are the deities or gods who have not experienced this life, and guardian spirits are the ones who have. So a lot of the times it could be our ancestors, in our bigger family. But please just, if you'd like, just listen or pray together, whatever. And you don't even have to say guardian deities and guardian spirits. It could be any angels or gods that feel that you resonate, or ancestors. But to give a gratitude to those above us and around us who are protecting us. So I'll just lead this prayer. May peace prevail on earth. May peace be in our homes and countries. May our missions be accomplished. We thank you, guardian deities and guardian spirits. Thank you. So I'll begin, and my title was Envisioning a World of Peace. And I would like to share my perspective on this through sharing my teachings from the Byaku Shinko Kai. And to me, it's really focusing on the two questions: to know who we are, just like Rabbi has said, and to know the role and the work that we can take as our soul. And this first key, I think, is the power of prayer. And this is Masahisa Goi, my grandfather, who has brought up this peace prayer. And this was the time that he came up with this prayer. It was right after World War II. So when we say may peace prevail on earth, it's not the Japanese people here today with all the houses and protection saying, oh, I hope one day we can have peace. But it came from this darkness of right after World War, where everyone lost everything. And in that moment, my grandfather said that the world needs the power of prayer. And we must pray not only for Japan, but for the whole world, for all life, and to care for all life on earth. And so he came up with this peace prayer, may peace prevail on earth. And he really believed in the power of the energy of prayers. And more, I've learned to know that this is really about, through the words, may peace prevail on earth, we're tapping into the energy of the source, the frequency of what the source actually is sending us. And so I'm doing a prayer circle with my friends, and this is what one of my friends said, which I think was really true. She said that I've always thought prayer was wishing or hoping for something we don't have. But after doing this peace prayer, she realized that it was about seeing and sending gratitude to what we already have. And to me, this was so powerful because it reminds me of this cherry seed. Let's say I wanted a cherry and I see these seeds on the desk, and I would think, and maybe many of the people would think, okay, there's no more cherry. I want a cherry. And you say, oh, I wish I can have a cherry. Please give me cherry. But it's not wishing for something that we don't have. It's, can we see the cherry inside the seed? Can we see the potential of this seed? And inside the seed has all the wisdom to become a tree with so many cherries. It's all inside that seed. So could we look at this seed and see so many cherries in that? And I think my grandfather's prayer is exactly that. It's not saying, oh, one day may peace prevail on earth. It's saying we all have this seed, which is the soul, which has all the essence of the infinite love and peace and harmony and light within us. So just like Rabbi was saying, seeing the face of someone and seeing that it's a part of the divine, seeing this cherry seed, or looking at the soul and knowing that it has all the potential to become the peace or love or the essence of who we really are. And so I really loved it when she started doing this peace prayer, that she really tapped into that energy. And my grandfather always says, to live believing you were born from God, that itself is prayer. And so he to me, it's really about knowing who we are and where we came from, and all the soul, the seed within us. It's there. And all we need to do is tap into it and let that seed grow. And this is my grandfather with Morihei Ueshiba. He is the founder of Aikido, and they were best friends. And they really understood each other. And I think Goi Sensei, my grandfather, thought that who really understands him and his prayer was Ueshiba Sensei. And Ueshiba Sensei, I think, thought that who really understands the core of Aikido was my grandfather, because they were both using the energy of the universe, the universal energy. And maybe, I'm sure you know, Aikido is not about force of martial arts, but allowing that force and using that force. And my grandfather was also using the universal energy and frequency and bringing that out as human vessel. And that, I think that's where our prayer comes from. And this is my mother who took over. And to me, she really taught me who we really are. And she says that we are all the divine spark. And again, to me, it goes back to recognizing the seed in all of us. And as a fruit of a cherry, I don't know, some cherries are big and some are rotten or all that. But when we focus on the seed, it's all the same thing. And it has all the power and all the potential and it's all one. And this is what my mother kept teaching me. And so prayer, using the universal energy, knowing that we are the divine spark, these three are the key for me to envisioning a world of peace. And I wanted to share you one practical action for that, which is called the divine spark in a mudra that my mother started to share. And it's a sacred practice. And I'm sorry, I'm just gonna. And I think this mudra, this in, is using your own body movement and your own breathing to allow the universal energy to work with you and through you for allowing these souls to awaken and bring out its best. And, you know, just like the TV, the waves of the TV is all spread everywhere, but it needs an antenna and a TV to actually really make that something useful. And I think the same way the universal energy is spreading all out, all the infinite wisdom and love from the universe, from the essence is overflowing. But how do we really use that? And how could we become the vessel to tune into all of that, who we are? And so my mother came up with this mudra, which allows us, to me, I'm sorry, I'm speaking so fast. Do I have time? Yeah, okay. Practicing this mudra is like creating a soil for all seeds. If a seed is standing or sitting on a table, it's just a seed. But when you place that seed in the soil, that's when magic happens. And that's when the seed starts to blossom and grow. And I think, to me, this mudra is like creating this energetic field, and the soil energetically, so that each soul, each seed in us can actually start to remember who we are and to express and blossom who we really are. And so I want to share with you just a video of us performing the mudra, and I would like to ask Colleen to play it, and I'll be sharing the words, the meaning of each movement, because each movement has a meaning. And mudra, I mean, a lot of the Buddha statues has mudra, and I think in Japanese there's a word called kotodama, which is that the words carry spirit. But there's also another Japanese word that's called katadama, which means that the form also carries spirit. And this is just a really simple, silly thing, but if you put your arms like this and say, I love you, does that energy flow through this form? Or would you go like this and say, I'm nothing? You know, it doesn't feel right, because the form and the spirit is connected. But if you go like this and say, I love you, the energy brings out more from the form. But this is all just because of our social, but mudra is using the higher energy and using the form so that the energy can go through you and work with you. And we're doing this so that we can create this field of soil so that everyone can start awakening and blossoming into their true self. And my mother, she was just sharing that when we were doing a mudra, whenever there's like circumstances or news, we tend to do this so that we can support creating an energetic field, so that no matter what situation they're in, just like right after World War II, the members at that time showed me that even in any difficulties, they can have the love and light to care for others and to offer prayer for others. And so may we create this love and power of energy so that each one of us can really truly blossom. So I'm sorry that was long, but can you show the video, please? So first we breathe in and then we exhale. The first movement is we invite divinity from heaven, and our true existence radiates light. We receive divinity from heaven, and this divinity is within us. And the divine masculine and feminine are unified, and our true self emits divinity to humanity. The light spreads to each human being, and the divinity in everyone resonates from within. Everyone remembers the divine self. Humanity is divine. So thank you so much. That was the mudra, the divine spark in. And so to me, that's also another practice, a real action, using this energy and spreading in that kind of way. So thank you so much for, I'm really, really honored to be with everyone. Thank you.
Tammy, thank you so much for your contributions today. It is the perfect interlude for sharing all of this wisdom. And I don't know about you here, but I am sensing such unity in diversity here with our speakers today, that the messages have been exquisite, and the music really helps us to just breathe that in deeper and really feel what's being said. So I'm looking forward to this next section. We're going to bring all of our presenters on, and in this next time that we have together, I'm going to present a few questions to all the presenters, and we're just going to have an open dialogue about some themes here. And with that, again, I encourage you, if you have questions for our presenters, a specific presenter or for the whole panel, please put question in all caps in the chat, and then be brief with your question. I know we've had one other that was a very long explanation, but if you could just really synthesize that for us so we can make sure we get to those questions, we would love to entertain that. So, wow. Thank you, all of you. What an amazing One Planet Peace Forum. This has been so far. All of your contributions have been just so precious here. And I have a couple themes that I want to explore with the 5 of you here today, because today, the first question, today is day 99 of a journey we've all been on called 99 Days of Peace Through Unity. We started with World Unity Week back in June, and the very first day of World Unity Week to today is 99 days. And we thought, what an opportunity for us all to really hold this theme. And in honor of Avon Madison, who envisioned this World Unity Week through Peace Week and envisioned and expanded Peace Week. It is the 40th anniversary of the International Day of Peace. So it was a special year. So she brought that forward. Peace through unity. So we've explored how a unitive narrative really underpins and frames this healing response toward peace. And all of you have expressed unity in some way, from a whole worldview to the real unified nature of reality. We've talked about unity here. I'm wondering if you can share with our audience and with each other, what does peace through unity mean to you? And feel free to just unmute yourself and jump in, and let's just share dialogue here.
I think when, thank you, Julie, I'll just start us off. I just want to note, you were already doing it, Julie, but being at peace, feeling it right now, in every realm, in every part of the circle of the spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, it's so big. And so when you say peace through unity, I think of that huge expanding web. And that's the relationship with self in this vessel. That's far more than this vessel. Relationship with all the other two-leggeds, but with all of nature. And so acknowledging that there is a relationship, that I am earth and stardust and water and all of those things, that this, it just brings a smile to me. So that peace and unity is both the joy of this web and the responsibility to want to make sure I'm a life-giving part of it, that this energy continues to be for now and for the past and for the future. So I'm going to stop with that, because it's so, the fullness gets into time, circular time, gets into answer, gets into 7 generations going forward. So peace in unity is a big yes.
Julie, if I may, and I'll keep it short. I think, and I thank you, Anita, for your wonderful description of unity. I think another aspect of unity has to do with how, when people want to take on any great undertaking in life, any great cause for the betterment of especially large numbers of people, in this case, humanity, the first step is for them to come together and among each other discuss what is it that they agree upon, that they are unified around in relation to achieving unity of thought and action in moving forward with their great undertaking, in this case, world peace. In other words, we as human beings, we have to first achieve a unity of thought and action. What are the principles we want to uphold? What are the principles that should be important for us to uphold? What are things that we don't want to do, that bring harm or forms of violence or whatever? In other words, without a group having unity of thought first around principles and actions that they are united around, it just isn't possible, in my view, to achieve any greatness.
I would love to share actually a real life story of something that's happening right here in my hometown where I'm currently living in Greenville, South Carolina. It's a park and it's called Unity Park. So it's a really great example of how do we move forward with providing peace through unity, because the history that brought us to the point where we are developing this Unity Park is this. Not that long ago, several decades ago, there were white parks and there were black parks. And the land of which this park is now being created upon was in fact much of it taken from the black park at the time because the police wanted to use it for shooting ranges and a businessman took it and so on and so forth. And the community fought back. The community came back and said, you can't take this park away from our African American children. This is the only park we have to play on. And it's been many, many decades in the making. But now there is a creation of a beautiful park called Unity Park with the vision of, first of all, making amends from the taking of that park so many years ago, and the bridging, literally, of the land, of the history of that land where it used to be whites only and blacks only. And there's so many beautiful visions taking place in this park, and there is, in the planning of the park, a recognition that often when parks are planned like this near downtown areas, they become very gentrified. People who have been living there for many decades, are now pushed out because it becomes the place to be. So there's a thoughtfulness that is taking place among the city of making sure that that does not happen, and that there are parts of the areas around the park that are being maintained for the communities that have lived there in some time, even if the real estate values go really high. And what I love about this is that it took people from diverse perspectives, diverse histories, as Anita mentioned in the beginning, a sense of forgiveness, to be able to move forward, to develop this park together. They've raised almost $19 million for this public park. And they're doing this in a way that they are making sure that they're honoring all the communities to be able to come together and honor the history of it as well. So I think there's much that we can learn from little towns that are doing things like this. And it's very heartening for me to see how peace is being, put into action by recognizing our wrongs, forgiving those who have wronged us, working together toward a common value. We all want a place for our children to play, for example. So I thought I'd just share that as an example.
Great.
Okay, peace through unity. There is the word bodhi, or the awakened. In Japanese, we say satori, but when we break down the words of satori, sa could mean difference, and toru is to take out. So allowing us to express who we are as diversity, but having to at the same time take out the differences, and then it becomes unity, it becomes bodhi, it becomes awakening. So just like if I share the example of the seed, to look beyond the differences in the skin or the food, but being able to work from the seed as one, because when you take out that diversity, it is peace through unity.
Beautiful.
My sense is that peace and unity are the same thing. In Hebrew, the word we usually say for peace is shalom, and it comes from the same cognate as shalem, which means unity, completeness. You can't have unity without peace, and you can't have peace without unity. I'm not sure they're really different. What struck me as I listened to everybody was the unity in the message. Each person spoke from their own perspective, not always referencing their specific religious tradition, but certainly being shaped by it, but spoke from it, not from a tribalist perspective, not from, we're saved and you're damned and we're chosen and you're not, and we're the true believer and you're infidels. I mean, not that kind of madness, but from a deep mystical awareness of what's true, which in one way or another, I think we all said that, we're all manifestings of a singular reality, call it God or whatever you want to call it, the divine or whatever. And I think if there is going to be unity / peace, it's going to come when the mystic consciousness of our different traditions, and I would include science in this, because if you go, I think, deep into quantum mechanics and you look at what's happening with the Webb telescope, you're seeing this interconnectedness of everything. You're seeing what Thich Nhat Hanh called interbeing. When the mystics share the truths of their traditions, they're always sharing this perennial wisdom, this universal wisdom that everything is a manifesting of this non-dual reality. And that is, to me, the core mission, or at least a core mission, of what people like us have to do to bring out that universal teaching in all the religion, from all the different mystical perspectives, that we're all manifestings of the same reality. And once you know that, you have unity, and once you have that, you have peace.
Thank you for that. I want to put this back to the panel, but just first pause and recognize that the science is converging with those universal wisdom traditions and spiritual teachings that we have, and so there is a group of people working on what we're calling a unitive narrative, so that we can all like adopt that unitive narrative and go, of course, it's all the same thing, because that's what, it's not just science teaching us one thing, but it really is that these spiritual traditions and wisdom teachings, universal wisdom teachings from eons, say this, and now science is showing us. We have a scientist with us here, so it'd be interesting to see, Shamini, if you want to jump in here, but I just want to turn that right back to us and say, is it the same thing? Because so many of us have had this experience over the 99 days that coming into that prior unity, coming into this experience of unity is peace. And peace is this experience of unity. So I'll just put that right back at you. And Shamini, you just wrote a beautiful book about this very topic as well. So yeah.
I'd love to share just a little bit of perspective on this. As some of you know, I lead a nonprofit called the Consciousness and Healing Initiative, which is a collaborative of scientists, healing practitioners, spiritual leaders, educators, and artists to lead humanity to heal ourselves. And our central focus has been an area that Western scientists have been calling the biofield. And I won't get totally into that. We don't have a lot of time, but write about it a lot, spoken about it in recent TEDx talks, and I can tell you what the response has been there. The scientific reality and what we're learning from what we Western scientists call the biofield, the fields of energy and information that guide our health, whether we're looking at the biofield of a cell, or the humans connected to the earth, or between each other, as Rabbi Shapiro mentions, it's absolutely pointing us to the breadth and depth of our interconnectedness and how our interconnection can heal. That's really the point. I just recently did a TEDx Berkeley talk on this, and TED is very interesting because they had issues with it, and they flagged it for really what I would say is no reason. Because honestly, in mainstream medicine and science, we're still running from a lens of separatism that is honestly untrue. It's really not the truth. And the indigenous wisdom traditions have of course known this for millennia. And as Anita said, we're seeing a coming together. There are some systems that are slow in sort of uptaking that information and digesting it, but the scientific reality is very clear. So with respect to our topic today, peace, just to clarify and remind us of what so many of our speakers have said today, this idea of the biofield in many indigenous traditions was discussed as vital life force energy. And all of the speakers have spoken to that to some level, that in order to recognize that we're all part of the fabric of consciousness, when we tap in to the vital life force that flows within us, so that we can be creative and sing our own song and feel the divine spark that is in us, then we are more likely to recognize that in every living being that we encounter. So I do feel like this exploration of the hidden facet of healing, energy, information, the biofield, vital life force, Shakti, however we describe it, is really key to us bringing about peace in the world. And I'll stop there.
What you bring up for me is I love that the science and all of it is coming together. And we don't always smile when we talk about that in Indian country, because sometimes we're like, well, we don't need to be affirmed, but then even they smile and go, it's all being remembered, right? So I'm thinking in part when you say that, once a year, I take a group into the Amazon and the sacred headwaters, and knowing that Amazonia is a part of us, that 20% of our oxygen, it's critical, just as the ocean. So it's not saying one more than the other, but it's just very important. But then they got, Ecuador was the first country, and it was led by indigenous people to get the rights of nature. And of course we had to come together, the law, and when there were people from the north that came to support. But when the story began being told, and they started saying the year that the lawyers began working with the indigenous people and everything, and then this is the start, the rights of nature, and now other countries after it, the indigenous people just looked puzzled at them and said, wait a minute, yes, our agreement was really critical in that action, but you're not starting from where the energy source from source itself came. And all the prayers that as we were being, as war was being brought on us, rather than pushing back with more war, what we did is sang and danced and prayed, and using that energy field called for allies. And so that needs to be part of the story, because before we even gather with all of and we need to have those things anchored, the anchoring is already happening. The expansion is already happening. So I love the epic stories, the new narratives that are coming that is saying it's all of that. And we need all of it. So what I heard from all of you is we need all that to change the systems and structures that allow for the violence against women. We need to change that. But also, as my elders always said, always start at the beginning, because otherwise we will think today comes out of some void. It does not. It comes from a whole series of energies and a whole series afters. And aren't we grateful to be a part of this?
Mm. You know what? I'm going to just add another layer in. If you have a comment about unity, just be patient for 1 second, because I think we're starting to bring in nature into this conversation. And our focus during Peace Week has been on the 7 core needs. And together we held space for envisioning and co-creating a world where all humans and animals have guaranteed access to living soil, healthy water, vitalizing food, fresh, clean air, physical and emotional safety, comfortable shelter, and the conditions needed for the realization of our unique potential in mutual enrichment with our communities and ecosystems. It was beautiful. Every day we focused on one of those core needs. And so here we've been just kind of basking in this unitive narrative and the divine, and we can't leave out nature as Anita begins to talk and we start looking at that. So saying that, I'd love to explore with you your unique and diverse perspectives, but also in how does prioritizing these core needs and how we meet them create a pathway of peace as well? Like how does prioritizing nature and these core needs of if we think about it, vitalizing food, healthy soil, clean air, like how is that a pathway to peace from your perspective?
So I don't know if this fits. But when you said it, I had this like, oh, wow moment. In the book of Proverbs, in chapter 9, verse 1 of book of Proverbs, we get this line that Mother Wisdom, Chochmah in Hebrew, Sophia in Greek, Lady Wisdom, Mother Wisdom, established this lodge. And the lodge rests on 7 pillars. And the lodge invites people to the Feast of Wisdom, which is her gift to the world. But it rests on these 7 pillars. The Bible doesn't say what the pillars are. every generation has to wrestle with this. And what you were just outlining are the 7 pillars of wisdom's lodge, that if we could work with them, would bring us into this, global lodge, and bring about the unity, the peace, and the wisdom necessary to make the world the way you're envisioning it. So I'm not adding anything. I'm just, thank you for that. I hadn't thought of that before.
Anyone else feel to jump in on this?
I'll say just a little bit because I feel like I already talked a lot, but what I want to say is thank you. We saw so much energy about who's doing the most priority thing or not. And yet when you talk about all those elements, it's in everything. It's part of, and we all need breath. All beings need water. All, you go, so it's, for me, it's like, I'm one part of this amazing hoop of life. And so my energy is being drawn in who I am and what I am and my role. And knowing on holding that it's all interconnected. So if I focus on the forest, or you focus on the water, or you focus on the rebalancing of women, voices coming forward in this horrible time that we've had such imbalance of patriarchy and all of these things, then I just say gratitude. And yet I know that because we have so much people coming together, we go into this process of priority. And all I ask in that and add is that as we do that, is to remember to not only use the mind, but also use the heart and the spirit. Because too often I've seen people go to decision and action when a pause or getting an alignment, as Hoda was saying, what are the principles? What are we, so that's what I wanted to add, that gratitude to whichever you focus on. And especially if we can hold it with the knowing, as I focus on this, I know it's connected to everything else, but I'm focusing on this right now, the permanent preservation of the sacred headwaters of the Amazon, yet knowing that all the primary forces, all the waters and everything matter. You see what I'm saying?
I love that. And because they're all interconnected, right, Anita? I mean, that's the point. So we don't have to feel overwhelmed. And Julie, I really appreciate you bringing forth that 7-fold framework. And hopefully someone has put in the chat where we can learn more about that, read the documents that you all have been putting together, incredible work that I know is being done. And it reminds me of another group that some of you may be aware of called Community Commons, where they talk about the 7 vital conditions for well-being or flourishing. And they're very similar, right? So a thriving natural world, basic needs for health and safety, humane housing, meaningful work and wealth, lifelong learning, reliable transportation, and belonging and civic muscle. Because if we want peace in societies, we have to be able to provide these vital conditions. And so we can describe them in different ways, but what is beautiful is there's so many of us in the world. As long as we're all, aligned, and, this is a data-informed approach, and Julie's is too, it's great news because there's so many places where we begin to move, sort of move the interconnectedness into the state where everyone can thrive. So it's, as you said, I think, Anita, earlier, this is very doable. You said something like that. This is very achievable.
Julie, can I ask a question?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, this is for everybody, but I want to start with Anita and then Shamini. So Anita, you kept saying we have to go back to the beginning. And I keep thinking, and I mentioned it briefly, of this, what we're seeing through the Webb telescope. And we're looking back in the universe's history, and we're going back to, I don't know, but right now it's as far close to the beginning as we can get. And what I see when I look at this is our body. I mean, it's just, that we're looking at ourselves. But when you keep talking about, Anita, the hoop, and if you look at those spiral galaxies, it's like hoop is built into the very fabric of nature. And so you can comment that if you want. And then Shamini, I do a lot of talks, and people have been saying lately, oh, I look at the Webb telescope stuff and I feel so small. When I look at it, I feel so big because I'm looking at my body. So I'm wondering how, as a scientist, you look at this stuff and I mean, it's a kind of revelation.
Yeah.
So I don't know if either of you want to react to that, but I didn't want to miss the moment to put it to you.
I'll do a quick one, Shoni, and then I'll turn it back to you. When you say that, the first thing that came out was Black Elk, who's a very honored elder. And he, in explaining this hoop of life, and explaining about circle is so all over the world. I mean, some of our houses aren't circular and but circle is still a very common theme in traditions and stuff. And what he said is the circle, the hoop of life, the center is everywhere and the circumference, the edge is nowhere. And that's what when you said what you said, that's when I'm talk about going back to the beginning is where is that? I mean, however, when we think about everything being part of the hoop, nothing is othered, everything is, then it's a very good place to start. So we don't have the illusion that our mind can do of the separating. Yes, so that's all I had to.
Thank you.
And Rami, I love the reflection and the truth that you just shared. And absolutely, often in my talks, I say we're moving from the understanding of the body as a machine with different parts that don't talk to each other as the body as a garden. And that's not new. There are actually depictions of the body as a garden, for example, in Chinese medicine and other traditions. So this has all been known. And in our traditions, we often talk about the Loka Purusha, or the cosmic being. That we are the universe. And of course, our friend Deepak is very, loves to say that. Our friend Menas Kafados too, quantum physicist, they have a book actually called You Are the Universe. So there's a truth to that. And again, I think when we are coming from that place of wonder and reverence and a recognition of the vital life force that literally is powering everything in this universe, and then we look out through that telescope, we could have that revelation like you did. Yeah, we're small and we're everything at the same time. How amazing. That means that everything we do has an effect on everything else. So we have immense power. That's such a beautiful thing.
It seems to speak to the mudra that Yuka shared. And I get a sense that this is part of the vision of Baha'u'llah, this cosmic oneness. I don't know, Hoda, you have a...
Absolutely. I was actually going to comment that from the Baha'i perspective, really human beings are just another aspect of creation, if you will, and everything that's in it. And science has beautifully proven this, that, even in the universe, the elements that are out there are within everything on this planet, so there's no separation, no compartmentalization. It's all one in a sense. And what's amazingly beautiful about when you look at the planet Earth, how it's held together is so precise that if anything was to be tweaked a little bit, the whole thing would collapse. And one can say that about the universe. And I think you're absolutely right, Rabbi, that Baha'u'llah says that humanity, human beings, it's all one. It's all one. And therefore, how important it is for human beings to take care of this, if you will, nature, the natural resources, the animals, the insects, everything that is a part of our planet in particular. I mean, this brings us to the climate crisis, how important it is to especially raise our children to understand the moral dimension of this important crisis that we're facing, this climate change, that from a very young age to understand the dignity and respect that all aspects of our existence requires from us, because we are the ones that can destroy and are in unfair ways destroying the environment. So yes, it is a very all-encompassing process.
Wow. I want to just give Yuka a little space if you want to jump in here, Yuka. And okay, if not, if you do, I'm just going to pause for a minute, but then we're going to take some questions from the field. We've got people in the chat asking questions. There's one specific. I've gotten so many notices they want to hear Anita answer this question. So I want to make sure Anita gets this question and then all of you. But Yuka, was there anything you wanted to add before we shift?
No, please go on. Please ahead with the question for Anita.
Okay, I'm going to start with the priority question because Anita, I'm getting several different messages here. So Nair asked, my film is all about peace, unity, and return to Mother Earth, but sometimes by being faced with the cruelties of humanity while making this documentary, I myself fall into the darkness for brief moments. What would you suggest for those moments, please?
Thank you. First, just thank you for placing yourself there and allowing us through film, through video, we're able to share so much so readily. And I think I feel, I sense that to embrace those moments. So I just stick with that. I look like pretty together right here, but there are times it's like this, and this with my hair sticking out is hard to see because I have my virtual background with my thing. And that to be able to, as a human being, part of is experience emotion. So to be taken maybe even to your knees or lower when you are feeling all of that is to give gratitude for it. The issue is just like a river. It's not to get stuck or spiral. It's to let it flow. So it only is something then to be concerned about is if it gets you stuck to that, your energy and what you are here to be present to in this moment, in this now, and co-create with other people that prevents that. So I don't know that you'll be comforted by the answer. And also I think comfort is overvalued anyway. At least that's what we talk about. Is that there were years, I'll just end with this. I had a wonderful childhood, and yet at the same time, I had 9 years of child abuse, and I kept it a secret. And for 3 years, I remember as a teen, I never cried. That almost makes me want to cry, because what a beautiful thing to be able to allow it to flow and to move. So I'm just grateful for you, and to embrace it, to allow it to flow and move, and seek support along the way from nature, from your ancestors, from others, wherever, but allowing it to flow, and grateful for the tears as well, and to be able to feel that. And then to allow that to lift us, to propel us even further into our commitment of making this a thriving place for all beings, two-legged and all our other relatives.
Perhaps other panelists would love to jump in on that as far as how do we deal with those brief moments of darkness and grief?
Yeah, thank you so much. I would really appreciate if all of you would answer this question, because I'm really dealing with this situation that is happening currently in my country, in Armenia. And also it's important that I don't omit that part of my question, because I'm a grandchild of survivors of the Armenian genocide. And I had a film about the Armenian genocide that was shortlisted for an Oscar, which was all about unity and the fact that enemy is very fluid. There is no enemy. It was actually about the Turkish woman who finds out she has Armenian heritage. And currently I'm doing the same thing with this film. But especially with all of you talking about peace, it's very important for me to hear your answer, but specifically for the topic that I'm talking about, because unfortunately, Armenia is being omitted from the news when the American government, Lemkin Institute, Shoah Foundation are putting red flag warning currently for genocide happening again in the country. And I understand my country is not big as Ukraine, but all of you peace workers here know that we can only fight for humanity as a whole if we truly fight for humanity as a whole. So I really wanted to voice the fact that I'm working on a film about the Armenian genocide in Armenia. And if you could please keep it in mind when answering my question as well, I would be very, very grateful. And thank you so much for your wisdom. It has been very inspirational for me.
If I may, I'd like to respond to that. First of all, I would like to say how wonderful that you are making this movie, this film, this documentary, because that's an aspect of what I mentioned about consciousness raising. Part of our job in terms of wanting to understand the barriers to peace is to raise consciousness, is to educate people, is to put the information out there for people to see. Now, I know that you said media maybe does not cover these things and all that, but I would like to say that anything that we do in terms of promoting these issues is important because it is picked up by people. They do see it and they do begin to understand the situation better. As you were saying that, you know, I was thinking about the women's movement in Iran right now and what's happening. I was thinking about not Ukraine alone, but as I said, all the various troubles that are going on around the world and people suffering around the world. I think these are times when like-minded people have to come and support each other. I don't know where you live, but if you were near me, I would say I'd like to come and have tea with you and to just—
Thank you. I'm in Los Angeles. I would love to stay in touch.
Well, I do come to Los Angeles every now and then. Maybe we can connect, but it starts at that level where we support each other, where we are there for each other in moments of darkness, but also in moments of light. And then from there, we see how we can, create, if you will, a network to bring people on board and to be there for each other. But I don't want to take away from the work that you're doing, because that is the most important. You are putting information out there that is very important for people to know about. Thank you.
So I just want to jump in because I was thinking when I read your question, I was thinking very like you were talking just about how do you handle it personally. But now that I hear what you're actually doing, I think we have to add a word to this peace and unity, and that's justice. Mm-hmm. That I mean, if you look at the panel, there isn't a community, I think this is true, there's not a community represented in this panel that hasn't been through some kind of genocide or some kind of horror. And some of us, are responsible for horrors against others. So it's this is not an abstraction. So we have to bring justice into it, and that's going to mean at a bare minimum, just being aware of what's going on. I don't know. I just finished watching the Ken Burns film about the United States and the Holocaust, and how the U.S. did the best it could to ignore it. But that's just the beginning. Then you have to say, okay, how do we stop it? How do we create justice for what's happened in the past, some kind of restitution, and then how do we prevent it in the future? I mean, that's huge. I don't have an answer for that, but I think we have to expand the conversation beyond just the notion of peace, and include the notion of justice.
May I also say something? I just want to send my love personally to you, and I just wanted to let you know, please know that you're not alone. And I just wanted to show you a picture of our sanctuary in Fuji. And now, because of COVID, we don't do this. We only do it online, but there are 3,000, 4,000 people gather once a month just to pray for each country of the world. And of course, Armenia too. And there are thousands of people sending you prayer. And although you may not feel it, know it, see it, but we are here with you. And there's another picture that I can share with you. This is a picture of a huge spread of sheet, and there's 70,000 of these paper for each country that says until the day that that country can pray for each other on behalf of that country. For example, Armenia, may we pray for Armenia, and we write, may peace be in Armenia in your language. And there are people that volunteer that come. And so we have this wide sheet of prayers to each country of the world. And so we have 195 of all these sheet of papers. Please know that although there are so many violence and things that go on, although it may be very small light, that the light is with you. And if you could just imagine or remember that there are people praying and are with you. That's just what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Arigato. That really warms my heart. And I want to say that Armenian people, they have special connection to Fuji because it reminds us of our Ararat mountain. So it really is adorable that you're praying exactly by Fuji mountain. Arigato. And Toda Rabba, Rabbi Rami. I want to mention that my producer for the Armenian Genocide film is an Oscar-winning producer who's actually Jewish. And the Jewish community has been incredibly helpful with the film because, as you were saying, it's like a justice about the whole issues of humanity that we go together. And Hoda Mahmoudi, I would love to stay in touch. Thank you so much. And sorry, I just jumped in to say thank you to all of you, but Shamini, I'm waiting to hear from you too. Grateful to you all.
Thank you. And I don't have too much more to add to the wisdom of all of the panelists on this issue that you're facing, except to just remind us, I think we can all feel the elevation of our spirit that has come just from being together in this way. And, of course, my nerdy scientist hat wants to point out that this is a very real thing. Many of you are likely aware of the wonderful work over the decades done by the TM group with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's group and the TM work. What actually happens when we come together in collective practice? And in fact, our initiative did something similar on a very small scale where we recognized when we studied advanced meditators in the Sri Aurobindo ashram a few years ago, that in fact, our EEGs come into coherence together when we practice together. So, we can explore all of the ways that it happens, but the truth is that it does happen. And what I would offer is, in as much grief and pain that you feel, rightfully so, to recognize that this is part of the divide and conquer strategy, right? That these forces put into play to put us in despair, to make us feel isolated, to make it so, as Hoda said, the work that you're doing is important because you're touching people, you're opening their consciousness to what is actually happening. And for you, it is so important that you continue to come into that nurturing community so that you don't get completely drained and re-traumatized every moment.
Yeah. Thank you. I just want to pull a thread through here because there was one question about aren't we singing to the choir here, and I just want to reaffirm those two pieces. Huda spoke about getting the word out and what have you, and the idea of our collective practice does make a difference too. It is changing the vibrational frequency of the planet and humanity, and we are waking slowly. And I'm just going to keep saying, keep sharing, keep using our alternative medias. And yesterday I had an experience. I was with a couple people that have traditionally not understood our conversation of today and what we're talking about. And two different people came to me. One said, I've been hearing this about things on the planet. Is any of this true? And I just went, yes, opening to share. And then the other one said, it was just a simple little thing, but out of a person who has not been conscious about the climate change in the planet said, I thought about spraying all these crickets around here, and then I've seen all the bees in the front on the thing, and I decided I am not going to spray. And it was just like these moments of knowing that we are making a difference. even though it feels like we're not, we're singing to the choir. Literally, our messaging, our work, our alternative media, social media, and coming together in collective practice. Those are just a few, but we are making a difference. We have just a few minutes before we need to wrap. And I do want to present another question that came from the comments again, because this year our theme is Bold Visions for a Peaceful Future. And these times call for radical, bold vision and action, not just baby steps in, let's do one step at a time, but what is that bold, radical? So just listening to each other, if you could, in like 30 seconds or less, what is your boldest vision, panelists? I'll give you a pause to really come up with that, but what is your boldest vision of peace and peaceful action on the planet? And this person asked for the action, the actionable parts.
Peace begins with us. And we talked about our practice, but part of our practice isn't just about going in here or even collective practice in a safe space, which is very important. I think we all recognize that. But a bold action for each of us doesn't need to mean that we have to figure the entire system out on our own. Because it starts with us, what if each of us simply sat with someone who thinks entirely different than us, who completely triggers us, who actually has absolutely no idea what we're talking about right now? And what would it be like if we sat with them and we just listened? If we actually just held the presence of peace to deeply understand their perspective, their presence, without even trying to change them. Because if we can't each listen to the deep suffering that is taking place in each of us, we cannot transform it. So that's my suggestion. And I think it is bold, because it's very hard for us to be vulnerable in that way and not get triggered. But this is how we know if we're putting it into practice.
Thank you, Shamini.
I'll go in. It connects a little bit to what you were saying too. I felt a tug on me, and what the big bold vision is a vision of the 3-year-old, of us having our hands on each other's heart all over the world. And I just know that's to be so true. And the piece that connects with what Shamini said is, as that came through, I had a glimpse of one of the things I'm involved with, which is living room conversations. And some of the 4 gifts are part of living room conversations. And living room conversations is you bring together people who are not all of the same mind, and yet be able to sit together and listen. We can't know if something's really broken until we really listen. We can't heal. We can't forgive. So listening is so critical. And what happens when that process is not always that you agree. Many times it's not. But there's a level of this oneness we've been talking about, that everyone's worthy of being treated with dignity. And some kind of possibility begins to open up for us to be able to thrive and not be on this other, like, again, going back to the hoop, is it's all beings, it's everything. So thanks. And I'm going to pop off because they're turning off my internet. They're working. Julie told me. So I just want to say I don't want you to think I left personally. I just love to you all. Peace be with everyone.
Thank you so much.
So what I would say, I don't know if it's a bold vision. We're talking about concrete things to do. And I agree with everything that was said around listening and everything else. I think we need to learn to be silent also. Back in the 1980s, in 1984, I was invited to be part of something that Father Thomas Keating created at his monastery in Snowmass, Colorado. And one of the things we did, he had 12 individuals from 12 different traditions live together for a week to 10 days. And part of what we did was just be silent together. And that was an incredibly powerful experience of the oneness of the the non-duality, of the divinity of everything, just being silent. But I just want to say something to the notion that we're singing to the choir. Yeah, we're singing to the choir because the choir is the only one who's going to sing. The rest of people aren't going to sing. So my response to someone when they tell me, well, you're just singing to the choir, my response is always, yeah, now let's sing louder. And that's what I think we have to do, is sing louder.
Thank you.
I was just going to say quickly, every one of us is every day is interacting with human beings, and how we interact with them is what is important. Are we about friendship, neighborly love, helping others, even the ones who don't want to have anything to do with us, in other words, I think it starts that way, and then it can go on into what people do if they are in their profession, if they're in their workplace, whatever setting. I think there are so many ways to brighten the day, to listen to other people, and to, as the rabbi said, to hear their concerns and to just be there for them. I mean, I think it starts there, but then it goes on to movie making, book writing, whatever is a person's capacity and talent. But it's everywhere. It's how to spread that love, that care, but coupled with, I think, things like justice and fairness, and again, those spiritual principles that I think resonate with everyone. Again, it's not forcing a religion on people, but it's the spiritual, it's the ethical, it's the moral issues that really matter in this world. And that's how we can, I think, through our actions, make a difference.
Thank you. And Yuka?
I just wanted to say, may we use less of our brains. Because there was a time when I was in prayer and I was feeling this beautiful light that gave me awe, and I started crying. At that time, my brain was saying, Yuka, you're so weird, you're so crazy, stop crying because it's embarrassing. This is what my brain tells me. And the brain is here for us to live this third dimension. But our soul is here to really, the soul knows through vibration, and it's working with energy. And I think we're coming to an age to really work with frequency and energy and vibration. So even if it's a small act, even a small act of kindness, or thinking of what to eat, could we use our energy of our soul and not just the action, but using the vibration or I can't really explain it, but don't go too much of the head, because from my experience, if I really believed my head and what my brain was saying at that moment, I would have missed out on this beautiful, sacred experience of tapping into the soul energy. So thank you very much.
Panelists, thank you for an enlightening, really vibrant, alive conversation that really matters. We've really covered some beautiful topics, and the essence of peace and unity was just like glowing through you today. So thank you all for joining us. And thank you, participants, for joining us on this third annual One Planet Peace Forum. Together, we seek to live by unifying these unifying principles and values that we've been talking about to bring about profound transformation of human relationships on all levels. So, by practicing, by encouraging, by staying together, by supporting, let's carry all of this out today to the world and everyone that we meet. There's so much good advice here. I hope you took good notes. This will be on replay on the One Planet Peace Forum site. That's oneplanetpeaceforum.org. If you want to watch this again, there's a lot of good material here. And sign up to stay connected and informed. Next year, we hope to gather in person. So we want to make sure you get an invitation, oneplanetpeaceforum.org. And if you're able to make a donation to support this work and next year's live event, please do that. We want to thank everyone who's made this forum possible, the OPPF leadership team and advisory council, especially Kate Roach and Dot Maver, who've been working extra hard behind the scenes for us today and in the prior weeks to this. Thanks for Unity Earth and Peace Week team for including this forum as the featured event for today, and the Sign Network for sharing it out. And a special thanks to our behind the scenes production team, especially Teresa Collins, Kaylin Holmes, and the connection field collaboration between the IOC network, Global Coherence Pulse, Unify, and the good of the whole. And finally, we want to give a special thanks to Bob Atkinson, founder of the One Planet Peace Forum. It is his bold vision that makes this forum possible. Thank you, Bob. And again, please sign up to stay informed, oneplanetpeaceforum.org. We invite you to stay in the room. There's a beautiful meditation coming up really soon. And tonight at 7 p.m. is our closing gala. That's 7 p.m. Eastern right here in this room. So make sure you come back if you're able. It's going to be a lively celebration. Again, thank you all for joining us today. And we go out with some beautiful music again by Tammy. Thank you, Tammy.
What an honor to be with you all today. And the closing song that I have selected is called Peace Blessing. This is a song that I played when I very first met Avon Madison. And we will use this beautiful song as a way to honor her memory and feel her presence. Peace Blessing.
Thank you all. May peace prevail on earth.